Hello everyone, this is Beware the Q. I hope you're all doing well. I'm making this video because I have a recommendation for you. Now, it's a speculative evolution documentary from 1997, and it's one that you've probably never seen before. It's available on YouTube and it's called The Natural History of an Alien. So I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can go ahead and watch that. It's about 45 minutes long. It's very cool, you know, it's vintage 90s documentary, it's got the CGI and everything, all the stuff that I love in a vintage Spec Evo documentary. Now, I've got a list of reasons here for why you should watch it, so we'll start with the first one. It talks about something called the Epona Project. Now, this is proper old school world building project. It's a collaborative thing with around 40 people, I think, and it started back in 1992, and I think it's I don't know if it's still active, but there's still, you can see bits and pieces of it on online. But it's interesting reading about it because with it being in the early 90s when it started, it was in 1992. It was done using, it was done by sending information and, artwork and details and ideas and things through the mail, which, it's unbelievable that that's what you had to do. It does say that some of the people did have email and an internet connection back then. This was the early 90s, though, and not many people did. So the majority of it took place through, sending stuff through the mail. So that was really cool, and that's a cool thing that I didn't know about, so that's something I'm going to be looking at further, the Epona Project. I don't think there's an official website for it, I can't seem to find one, but on the worldbuilders.info WordPress blog, it does have some information about it. I can see a picture of the actual initial newsletter that got it started in 1992. So I'm going to link that in the description as well. You can go ahead and have a look at that if you want. Second thing is it talks about a really good book by Brian Aldiss called Helixia Spring. This is a book that I've read and I really enjoyed it. It was a little while ago when I read it, so I can't really remember that much about it because I've got a terrible memory. But it interviews Brian Aldiss as well, and he talks about his world-building process, like how he came up with ideas. It said that he worked with actual physicists to get the fauna and flora to a believable level in his story, which was very cool. A lot of people would probably just wing it and think, oh, it's just a fictional story, who cares? He actually went the extra mile and he talked with real physicists and scientists to get his stuff to a realistic and believable level, which is very, very cool. It was a really good book as well, but I've just, like I said, I've got such a bad memory, I can't really remember that much about it. But, go ahead and find it. You can probably find it for, very, very cheap on eBay. It's also part of a trilogy as well, but I've not actually read the other two books. Those are on my reading list, and I will get round to them eventually. Maybe one day I'll do a review of Helixia Spring as well. I'll have to reread it again or skim through it at least just to jog my memory, but it's a very cool book. If you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. Now, another thing that's very, very cool about this, and it was really unexpected actually, is Dougal Dixon makes an appearance, which, that's not unusual as such because, in the previous video I talked about his After Man documentary that came out in the 90s in Japan. So, it's not unheard of for Dougal Dixon to appear in these Spec Evo documentaries. But what was really cool about this one is, like, each segment, I say each segment, there are some segments where it has an individual scientist or somebody like Dougal Dixon, somebody that comes up with these sorts of things, does world building and stuff. And when it came to Dougal Dixon talking about he was talking about Green World. Now, you may remember that I mentioned Green World in the previous video. That is also a book that he wrote that came out only in Japan. And a lot of people speculate that that is actually the true sequel to After Man instead of Man After Man. Dougal Dixon wasn't that happy with Man After Man. It's kind of like, the publishers interfered and they were meddling with what he was trying to do. Green World is the true version of Man After Man. Again, only released in Japan and in Japanese. It's something that I would really like to get hold of. Maybe one day I will if I'm lucky. I did manage to get hold of Man After Man, which is also a very rare book. So maybe one day I will get hold of Green World. But it was really cool seeing some of the creatures from the Green World book appear in this documentary, and in CGI form no less. And he gives us a bit of an idea of the lore of Green World as well, some of the backstory. So going back 600 million years, he says that in the beginning of Green World, all the life was in the sea, and they were basically bottom feeders like starfish. They all had what he says is a radial symmetry, and they're sort of built like a wheel, which is that's quite an interesting design choice. Pretty cool. I'm going to put some pictures up, and you can see, because it'll explain better than I can explain it. You'll be able to actually see what I'm talking about. But yeah, the legs sort of radiate out in a circle, and then he says when the animal life evolved into land-living creatures, they developed a bilateral symmetry where basically every creature has a line going down the middle of its body, and everything is arranged either along that line or in pairs at each side. Very, very interesting. It's very cool to get some actual info on Green World. It seems like info on it is kind of hard to come by, so, really the only place you can see much detail about the book is on Dougal Dixon's website, where it talks about each of the books that he's written. I'll link that page in the description as well, so you can have a look at that. But apart from that, it's like there's a couple of bits and pieces here and there online, but I haven't really found anything that goes really, really deep into it, which is a shame. So it was really cool to see that in this documentary. Hopefully Green World will see an English language release one day. I would very much like that. I would buy it and add it to my ever-increasing collection of speculative evolution books. There aren't that many Spec Evo books, to be honest. When as a genre, it's not that big, so I'll take what I can get. So anyway, that's my recommendation for the day. You can find it on YouTube, as I said before. It seems that it was uploaded by a guy in the Netherlands who, it seems back in the day, back in the 1990s, he taped it off TV, onto VHS as they did back then. As we did back then, I should say. I'm not that young, I was doing that as well in the 90s. It's all in English though. It's got Dutch subtitles at the bottom, but it's not a problem really, is it? But I've linked it in the description. Go ahead and watch that. It's really cool. It'll be an enjoyable 45 minutes, I can assure you. It's a very nice, very cozy documentary. You got the 90s CGI, the 90s music, and it's got some a little bit of quirky 90s humour at the end as well. It may have some of you shaking your heads a little bit when you see it, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was cool. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, share this video, leave a comment, become a patron if you're feeling generous, or become a member on YouTube, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.